Well, it's storybook time. Welcome, boys and girls and ladies and gentlemen, here by the wood stove. And I recently finished part of this book here. This is a compilation of John Bunyan's works, including Pilgrim's Progress and Grace Abounding to the Chiefest of Sinners, but also a book called The Holy War. Now, I'm not the brightest guy out there. You can tell by looking at me, I'm kind of a country hick. So I'm not going to be able to tell you today who this certain group is, the Diabolonians, because I'm not able to understand such high levels of things. So I want you, the viewer, to tell me who you think it is in the comment section below. I'm going to read you some quotes here, and let's see if we can get this figured out, who these Diabolonians are. We're going to start on page 548 of this book here, the compilation of the book about the Holy War. All right, page 548, it says here, it's about a town called Mansoul, and Satan comes along, basically in the form of Diabolus, and he takes over this town of Mansoul. And here you have Emmanuel, being a type of Jesus Christ. He comes and he's telling the people of Mansoul this very important thing. Okay, page 548, it says, "Next, O my Mansoul, I do warn you of that which, notwithstanding that reformation that is at present wrought among you, you have need to be warned about. Wherefore hearken diligently unto me. I am now sure, and you will know hereafter, that there are yet of the Diabolonians remaining in the town of Mansoul, Diabolonians that are sturdy and implacable, and that do already, while I am with you, and that will yet more when I am from you, study, plot, contrive, invent, and jointly attempt to bring you to desolation, so to a state far worse than that of the Egyptian bondage. They are the avowed friends of Diabolus. Therefore look about you. They used heretofore to lodge with their prince in the castle, when incredulity was lord mayor of this town. But since my coming hither they lie more in outsides and walls, and have made themselves dens and caves and holes and strongholds therein. Wherefore, O Mansoul, thy work as to this will be so much the more difficult and hard, that is, to take, mortify, and put them to death, according to the will of my Father." Oh my, put Diabolonians to death. Wow. This is written back in the 17th century by John Bunyan. I didn't write it, I'm just reading this thing here. You can figure out who it is. "Nor can you utterly rid yourselves of them unless you should pull down the walls of your town, the which I am by no means willing you should. Do ye ask me, what shall we do then? Why be you diligent, and quit you like men, observe their holds, find out their haunts, assault them, and make no peace with them. Wherever they haunt, lurk, or abide, and what terms of peace soever they offer you, abhor, and all shall be well betwixt you and me. And that you may the better know them from those that are the natives of Mansoul, I will give you this brief schedule of the names of the chief of them, and they are these that follow: the Lord Fornication, the Lord Adultery, the Lord Murder, the Lord Anger, the Lord Lasciviousness, excuse me while I turn the page, the Lord Deceit, the Lord Evil Eye, Mr. Drunkenness, Mr. Reveling, Mr. Idolatry, Mr. Witchcraft, Mr. Variance, Mr. Emulation, Mr. Wrath, Mr. Strife, Mr. Sedition, and Mr. Heresy. These are some of the chief, O Mansoul, of those that will seek to overthrow thee forever. These, I say, are the skulkers in Mansoul. But look thou well into the law of thy king, and there thou shalt find their physiognomy, and such other characteristical notes of them by which they certainly may be known. These, O my Mansoul, and I will gladly that you should certainly know it, if they be suffered to run and range about the town as they would, will quickly like vipers eat out your bowels, yea, poison your captains, cut the sinews of your soldiers, break the bars and bolts of your gates, and turn your now most flourishing Mansoul into a barren and desolate wilderness and ruinous heap. Wherefore, that you may take courage to yourselves to apprehend these villains wherever you find them, I give to you my Lord Mayor, my Lord Will-be-will, and Mr. Recorder, with all the inhabitants of the town of Mansoul, full power and commission to seek out, to take, and to cause to be put to death by the cross all and all manner of Diabolonians, when and wherever you shall find them, to lurk within or to range without the walls of the town of Mansoul. If you know anything about John Bunyan, he writes very much in a symbolic kind of figurative means. So he'll have different names of people and things which are, showing their character. So let's see if we can figure out who these Diabolonians are. You might have an idea already. Page 551. Over here it says, "Now as I have set before your eyes the vagrants and runagates by name, so I will tell you that among yourselves some of them shall creep in to beguile you, even such as would seem, at that in appearance, very rife and hot for religion." Or they'll be false converts, in other words. "And they, if you watch not, will do you mischief, such an one as at present you cannot think of. These, as I said, will show themselves to you in another hue than those under description before. Wherefore, Mansoul, watch and be sober, and suffer not thyself to be betrayed." These people that John Bunyan is writing about, they come in feigning themselves to be religious, and actually they're trying to draw you into bondage to get you messed up and to destroy you morally speaking. I wonder who they could be. Let's go to page 556 now. Okay, continuing here it says, "But there was a man in the town of Mansoul, and his name was Mr. Carnal Security. This man did, after all this mercy bestowed on this corporation, bring the town of Mansoul into great and grievous slavery and bondage. A brief account of him and of his doings take as followeth. When Diabolus at first took possession of the town of Mansoul, he brought thither with him a great number of Diabolonians, men of his own conditions. Now among these there was one whose name was Mr. Self-Conceit, and a notable brisk man he was, as any that in those days did possess the town of Mansoul. Diabolus then, perceiving this man to be active and bold, sent him upon many desperate designs, the which he managed better and more to the pleasing of his lord than most that came with him from the dens could do. Wherefore, finding him so fit for his purpose, he preferred him and made him next to the great Lord Will-be-Will, of whom we have written so much before. Now the Lord Will-be-Will, being in those days very well pleased with him and with his achievements, gave him his daughter, the Lady Fear-Nothing, to wife. Now my Lady Fear-Nothing did this Mr. Self-Conceit beget this gentleman, Mr. Carnal Security. Wherefore, there being then in Mansoul those strange kinds of mixtures, it was hard for them in some cases to find out who were natives, who not. For Mr. Carnal Security sprang from Mr. Lord Will-be-Will by the mother's side, though he had for his father a Diabolonian by nature." How curious is that? Mixed marriages leading to trouble? Remember, I'm just a dumb hillbilly that's reading this book. I have no idea. You can write it down in the comments who you think this could be referring to. I certainly don't know. Continuing here, page 570. "Now if you have not forgot, you may yet remember that I told you before that after Emmanuel had taken Mansoul, yea, and after that he had new modelled the town, there remained in several lurking places of the corporation many of the old Diabolonians, that either came with the tyrant when he invaded and took the town, or that had there, by reason of unlawful mixtures, their birth and breeding and bringing up, and their holes, dens, and lurking places were in, under, or about the wall of the town. Some of their names are the Lord Fornication, the Lord Adultery, the Lord Murder, the Lord Anger, the Lord Lasciviousness, the Lord Deceit, the Lord Evil Eye, the Lord Blasphemy, and that horrible villain, the old and dangerous Lord Covetousness. These, as I told you, with many more, had yet their abode in the town of Mansoul, and that after Emmanuel had driven their prince Diabolus out of the castle. Against these the good prince did grant a commission to the Lord Will-be-Will and others, yea, to the whole town of Mansoul, to seek, take, secure, and destroy any or all they could lay hands on, for that they were Diabolonians by nature, enemies to the prince, and those that sought to ruin the blessed town of Mansoul. But the town of Mansoul did not pursue this warrant, but neglected to look after, to apprehend, to secure, and to destroy these Diabolonians. Wherefore, what do these villains but by degrees take courage to put forth their heads, and to show themselves to the inhabitants of the town, Yea, and as I was told, some of the men of the town of Mansoul grew too familiar with some of them, to the sorrow of the corporation, as you yet will hear more of in time and place. In other words, they made business connections with these Diabolonians. And mixed marriages with them. Interesting. Well, when the Diabolonian lords that were left perceived that Mansoul had through sinning offended Emmanuel their prince, and that he had withdrawn himself and was gone, what do they but plot the ruin of the town of Mansoul? So upon a time they met together at the hold of one Mr. Mischief, who was also a Diabolonian, and there consulted how they might deliver up Mansoul into the hands of Diabolus again. Now some advised one way, and some another, every man according to his own liking. At last my lord Lasciviousness propounded whether it might not be best, in the first place, for some of those that were Diabolonians in Mansoul to adventure to offer themselves for servants to some of the natives of the town. For, said he, if they so do, and Mansoul shall accept of them, they may for us and for Diabolus our lord make the taking of the town of Mansoul more easy than otherwise it would be. But then stood up the Lord Murder, and said, this may not be done at this time, for Mansoul is now in a kind of rage, because by our friend Mr. Carnal Security, she hath been once ensnared already, and made to offend against her prince, and how shall she reconcile herself unto her lord again, but by the heads of these men? Besides, we know that they have in commission to take and slay us wherever they shall find us. Let us therefore be wise as foxes. When we are dead we can do them no hurt, but while we live we may. Thus, when they had tossed the matter to and fro, they jointly agreed that a letter should forthwith be sent away to Diabolus in their name, by which the state of the town of Mansoul should be showed him, and how much it is under the frowns of their prince. We may also, said some, let him know our intentions and ask of him his advice in the case. Okay, they're trying to figure out how they can take over Mansoul. Let's go to page 575. And here's Diabolus writing back to the Diabolonians. Do you therefore, our trusty Diabolonians, yet pry more into endeavor to spy out the weakness of the town of Mansoul. We also would that you yourselves do attempt to weaken them more and more. Send us word also by what means you think we had best to attempt the regaining thereof, to wit, whether by persuasion to a vain and loose life, or whether by tempting them to doubt and despair, or whether by blowing up of the town of the gun, or by the gunpowder of pride and self-conceit. Do ye also, O ye brave Diabolonians and true sons of the pit, be always in readiness to make a most hideous assault within, when we shall be ready to storm it without. Now speed you in your project, and we in our desires, to the utmost power of our gates, which is the wish of your great Diabolus, Mansoul's enemy, and him that trembles when he thinks of judgment to come. All the blessings of the pit be upon you, and so we close up our letter. So they're writing, these Diabolonians write to Diabolus. Diabolus writes back, and he says, what you need to do if you want to take over these people is to get them to sin, which will cause them to despair. Destroy them morally. Who's he symbolizing? Well, I just can't imagine. All right. Next we're going to go to page 581 in this book. It says here, first we considered of that most hellishly cunning, compacted, threefold project that by you was propounded to us in your last, and have concluded that though to blow them up with the gunpowder of pride would do well, and to do it by tempting them to be loose and vain will help on, yet to contrive to bring them into the gulf of despair we think will do best of all. Now we, who are at your beck, have thought of two ways to do this. First, we, for our parts, will make them as vile as we can, and then you, with us at a time appointed, shall be ready to fall upon them with the utmost force. And of all the nations that are at your whistle, we think that an army of doubters may be the most likely to attack and overcome the town of Mansoul. Thus we shall overcome these enemies, else the pit shall open her mouth upon them, and desperation shall thrust them down into it. We have also to effect this so much by us design, sent already 3 of our trusty Diabolonians among them, They are disguised in garb. They have changed their names, and are now accepted of them, to wit, covetousness, lasciviousness, and anger. The name of covetousness is changed to prudent, thrifty. And him Mr. Mind has hired. It is almost become as bad as our friend. Lasciviousness has changed his name to harmless mirth. And he has got to be Lord Will-be-will's lackey. But he has made his master very wanton. Anger changed his name into good zeal, and was entertained by Mr. Godly Fear, but the peevish old gentleman took pepper in his nose, and turned our companion out of his house. Nay, he has informed us since that he ran away from him, or else his old master had hanged him up for his labor. In other words, Mr. Godly Fear was a preacher, and he started to look and say, wait a second here, I think this is a Diabolonian. And he's saying, no, I'm Mr. Good Zeal. No, you're a Diabolonian. The preacher found out who he was. Interesting. Again, it's just such a mystery who this could be talking about. Written by John Bunyan way back then. I sure wish I was smarter. I'd be able to figure it out. But and I certainly wouldn't want to persecute anybody for their system of belief or anything either, by naming certain names. Page 613. Page 613. All right, read a little bit more here about this Diabolonian conspiracy. Probably shouldn't have said that word either, right? The Lord Will-be-will also, he took the charge of watching against the rebels within, and to do what he could to take them while without, or to stifle them within their caves, dens, and holds in the town of Mansoul, and to speak the truth of him. Ever since he did penance for his fault, he has shown as much honesty and bravery as of spirit as any in Mansoul, for he took one Jolly and his brother Grigish, the two sons of his servant, Harmless Mirth, for to that day that the father was committed to ward, the sons had a dwelling in the house of my lord. I say he took them, and with his own hands put them to the cross. And this was the reason why he hanged them up. After their father was put into the hands of Mr. Truman, the gaoler, they his sons began to play his pranks, and to be ticking and toying with the daughters of their lord. Nay, it was thought that they were too familiar with them, the which was brought to his lordship's ear. Now his lordship, being unwilling unadvisedly to put any man to death, did not suddenly fall upon them, but set watch and spies to see if the thing was true, of the which he was soon informed, for his two servants, whose names were Find-all and Tell-all, catched them together in uncivil manner more than once or twice, and went and told their lord. So when my Lord Will-be-will had sufficient ground to believe the thing was true, he takes the two young Diabolonians, for such they were, for their father was a Diabolonian, born, and has raised them to Igate, where he raised a very high cross just in the face of Diabolus and his army, and there hanged the young villains in defiance to Captain Pasthope and of the horrible standard of the tyrant. My, such a drastic thing to do. Now this Christian act of hanging up the Diabolonian mixed children, such a thing here that John Bunyan is writing about. Now this Christian act of the brave Lord Will-be-will did greatly abash Captain Pasthope, discourage the army of Diabolus, put fear into the Diabolonian runagates in Mansoul, and put strength and courage into the captains that belonged to Emmanuel the Prince. For they without did gather, and that by this very act of my lord, that Mansoul was resolved to fight, and that the Diabolonians within the town could not do such things as Diabolus had hopes they would. Nor was this the only proof of the brave Lord Will-be-will's honesty to the town, nor of his loyalty to his prince, as will afterwards appear. And of course, there's a whole lot I'm having to leave out here. It's a pretty long book, so just remember, there's a lot more to it. I would suggest you read this book on your own to help figure out who this is talking about. Next, we're going to go to page 631, and I'll read a little bit more about these Diabolonians. Wherefore he commanded that his drum should be beat again, a thing that Mansoul could not abide to hear. But when Diabolus will have his drum beat, Mansoul must abide the noise. Kind of makes me think almost like when I go into the grocery stores and I have to abide the drums of Diabolus there. You know, the music that's being played. Probably no connection to it because this is written back in the hundreds, and John Bunyan wouldn't have known about rock music back then, or worldly, drum beats that mess up your head as a Christian. He wouldn't have known. So I'm wrong. I shouldn't have brought that up. Forgive me. Well, the drum was beat, and the Diabolonians were gathered together. They marched to the beat of their own drummer, you know what I'm saying? Then said Diabolus, O ye stout Diabolonians, be it known unto you that there is treachery hatched against us in the rebellious town of Mansoul. For albeit the town is in our possession, as you see, yet those miserable Mansolians have attempted to dare and have been so hardy as yet to send to the court of Emmanuel for help. This I give you to understand, that ye may yet know how to carry it to the wretched town of Mansoul. Wherefore, O my trusty Diabolonians, I command that ye more and more ye distress this town of Mansoul, and vex it with your wiles, ravish their women, deflower their virgins, slay their children, brain their ancients, fire their town, and what other mischief you can, and let this be the reward of the Mansolians from me, for their desperate rebellions against me. It reminds me of something. There was some 24 volumes of some book thing I was reviewing. I don't remember the name of it right now. But it kind of brings to mind that whole thing there. I just wish I could remember it. It's not terrible. Page 640. You know, Mansoul is a market town, and a town that delights in commerce. What therefore, if some of our Diabolonians shall feign themselves for our countrymen, and shall go out and bring to the market of Mansoul some of our wares to sell, and what matter at what rates they sell their wares, though it be but for half the worth? Almost like merchants or something, but there wouldn't be any connection because John Bunyan would have understood about merchants. So I shouldn't have brought that up again. Now let those that thus shall trade in their market be those that are witty and true to us, and I will lay my crown to pawn it. Will do. There are two that are come to my thoughts already that I think will be arch at this work, and they are Mr. Pennywise, pound foolish, and Mr. Get ye the 100 and lose ye the shire. I love John Bunyan's names he comes up with. Nor is this man with the long name at all inferior to the other. What also if you join with them Mr. Sweet World and Mr. Present Good? They are men that are civil and cunning, but are true friends and helpers. Let those with as many more engage in this business for us, and let Mansoul be taken up in much business, and let them grow full and rich. And this is the way to get round of them. Remember ye not that thus we prevailed upon Laodicea? And how many at present do we hold in this snare? Now when they begin to grow full, they will forget their misery, and if we shall not affright them, they may happen to fall asleep. And so be got to neglect their town watch, their castle watch, as well as their watch at the gates. Yea, may we not by these means so cumber Mansoul with abundance, that they shall be forced to make of their castle a warehouse instead of a garrison fortified against us, and a receptacle for men of war. Thus if we get our goods and commodities thither, I reckon that the castle is more than half ours. Besides, could we so order it that it should be filled with such kinds of wares, then if we made a sudden assault upon them, it would be hard for the captains to take shelter there. Do you know that of the parable, the deceitfulness of riches choke the word? And again, when the heart is overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness, and the cares of this life, all mischief comes upon them at unawares. Furthermore, my lords, quoth he, you very well know that it is not easy for a people to be filled with our things, and not to have some of our Diabolonians as retainers to their houses and services. Where is a Mansolian that is full of this world, that has not for his servants and waiting men Mr. Profuse or Mr. Prodigality, or some other of our Diabolonian gang, as Mr. Voluptuous, Mr. Pragmatical, Mr. Ostentation, or the like? Now these can take the castle of Mansoul, or blow it up, or make it unfit for a garrison for Emmanuel, and any of these will do. Yea, these, for all I know, may do it for us sooner than an army of 20,000 men. Wherefore, to end as I began, my advice is that we quietly withdraw ourselves, not offering any further force or forcible attempts upon the castle, at least at this time, and let us set on foot our new project, and let us see if that will not make them destroy themselves. This advice was highly applauded by them all, and was accounted the very masterpiece of hell, to wit, to choke man soul with a fullness of this world, and to surfeit her heart with the good things thereof. But see how things meet together. Just as this Diabolonian council was broken up, Captain Credence received a letter from Emmanuel, the contents of which were, that upon the third day he would meet him in the field and the plains about Mansoul. Again, they're being besieged by the Diabolonians and Diabolus and the doubting army of doubters, and they're sending help. Please help us, Emmanuel. And Emmanuel finally says, okay, you've repented enough, you've suffered enough, I'm going to come and help you. And the Diabolonians are planning the final hurt. And they were going to fill the town of Mansoul with goods, cheaply made goods, and almost like they're saying it would be debt. That the people of Mansoul would be enslaved to them through debt. I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm sure, so just don't pay attention too much to me. It's, trying to make trouble here, I guess. Page 674. We'll go there now. All right. So now you go forward in time here. Emmanuel does come and he helps them, and the Mansoul they're taking the town back away from the Diabolonians, but there's still a few around. And it says, after this my lord apprehended Clip Promise. Now because he was a notorious villain, for by his doings much of the king's coin was abused. Therefore he was made a public example. He was arraigned and judged to be first set in the pillory, then to be whipped by all the children and servants in Mansoul, and then to be hanged till he was dead. It's terrible. I don't remember what it was. I remember there was somebody in the past that I heard of, that this group of people, something that they would clip the edges of coins and then melt them down, and thereby debase the currency. And I don't know, but there couldn't have been a connection with banking and what the Diabolonians are. No, don't get conspiratorial. Remember that. You don't want to be conspiratorial. It's bad for your health and things. 682. Clipping coins. Who does that? People in the banking industry are honest. Come on. If you can't trust a banker, who can you trust? Page 682. And dost thou know why I at first, and do still suffer Diabolonians to dwell in thy walls, O Mansoul? It is to keep thee wakening, to try thy love, to make thee watchful, and to cause thee yet to prize my noble captains, their soldiers, and my mercy. So Emmanuel comes back and he says, the reason I let these Diabolonians there is to see if you will fight against them and to try your love towards me. See, if you love the Lord, you're going to be against the Diabolonians. And when you see somebody that says, I love Jesus, but yet I'm perfectly fine mixing with the Diabolonians, then you're dealing with a fake, according to what he's saying here. Further it says here, show me then thy love, my Mansoul, and let not those that are within thy walls take thy affections off from him that hath redeemed thy soul. Yea, let the sight of a Diabolonian heighten thy love to me. I think it'd do you pretty good if you would read this book, if you haven't ever read it. There went the ribbon. There's a lot of copies of the Holy War out there, but you might want to read it and consider it, especially if you're a fan of Pilgrim's Progress. And it's an enjoyable book. I heard about it at one point in time, and I thought, yeah, I'd like to read that sometime. And as I've read it and studying other things, which I will not name, not because I'm afraid to, but just because I'd like you to figure it out. I don't want to do all the work for my viewers. As I was reading through this, I thought, John Bunyan knew. He knew what the whole thing was all about. So I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Who do you think the Diabolonians, who is John Bunyan trying to symbolize with this thing of the Diabolonians? All right. I think you can figure it out if you understand some things. So that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you think. and I'll see you in the upcoming studies. As always, thank you very much for watching.